Welcome to the next episode of the Inspirational Lab podcast. I'm here with my friend Pam Hardy, and Pam has a degree in mass communications from Shaw University. And Pam and I have been friends for about 2 years now. We have a great time when we're together, and we're going to talk about transferable skills today. And it's a topic that Pam is really passionate about, and I can't wait for you guys to hear from her. So, Pam, why don't you introduce yourselves and yourselves? You're just one self, you're just one person. But Pam, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about you?
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, thank you first for inviting me to have a girlfriend conversation with you and talk about transferable skills. We've had this conversation for a while, and so it's a pleasure to be here with you on your podcast. So, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, came down to North Carolina to attend Shaw University, have a master's in organizational leadership from Waldorf University. I enjoy mentoring women and girls in leadership. I love reading, and one day I will write a book. We already chatted about that. But
Yes, I love it.
transferable skills is something that I'm really passionate about, and it's helped me get to where I am in my career today, as well as in my personal life.
That's wonderful. And I don't know how I didn't know that you have a master's degree, but of course you do. That's awesome. And you don't have your glasses on today. So for people who are listening that can't see us, we are going to have a video up if people want to watch the video. But we normally both have glasses on, which is another one of our shared loves, along with books and colorful dresses and glasses and all those sorts of things. So we're both kind of nerdy. So of course you have a master's degree in leadership because you are a great leader. Speaking of that, talk to us and maybe share with folks the different roles that you've had. And you don't have to maybe get in the weeds of every single one, but I think the progression in your career is really helpful for people to hear because I think so often people aspire to something, but they don't really know how to get there. And there's not a linear, what do they say? It's not a ladder anymore. It's a jungle gym. And I think
Yeah.
that's a much better way to think about our career trajectory. I don't know if you agree with that.
I absolutely agree with that. There's not one way to get to wherever you're trying to go. For instance, with me, I started out with my current employer as a customer service representative, answering customer billing calls. And I've always been a lifelong learner. So I like taking on different roles. So from there, I had the opportunity to work on a rotational assignment as an administrative assistant. And then I moved into consumer affairs, where I saw complex customer issues, sensitive customer issues on behalf of our senior leadership, as well as our customer service managers and leaders in the company. From there, I had an opportunity to kind of go into what they called a prototype specialist. So had some marketing components to it where you would reach out to internal customers to find out how you could assist them with improving either a work process, a product, or maybe even finding out customer insights on how they felt about a product or service. And then from there, I had a lifelong goal of working in corporate communications, and I fulfilled that by working as a company spokesperson, supporting the customer services organization, which ultimately landed me here in this current role as a district manager supporting 6 counties, and also serving as a resource and contact to the Duke Energy Foundation, making sure that our goals align with their 3 pillars. So all of those things have led me to where I am, and transferable skills were definitely a component of getting me there.
What would you say, thinking about transferable skills, because you started customer service, is that what you said? The
I
very
did.
first one? Is that like somebody's calling on the phone and they're like happy or maybe not so happy about something? That's like
Right. So
that's what if we're envisioning that, that's what I'm thinking, right? So that thinking about those very early skills all the way to where you are today, like what is the skill that you think is the most important transferable skill, or is there even one?
I think listening,
Mm-hmm.
being able to listen, to clearly understand what someone is asking you, and then share that information back to do a listening check, and then offer solutions on how you can assist, facilitate, or introduce them to someone that can address their need or solve their problem. I think that has really been one of those transferable skills that has served me well in my personal as well as my professional life.
I mean, that like doing a listening check, I mean, that just in and of itself is so great because it's like, how often do we feel like we've been listened to? One, and number two, that somebody even checked, apart from a therapist, truly. Really, you got to pay somebody to do this, to really say, okay, because that is what half of what therapy is like, so what I heard you say is, because they parrot it back, because so infrequently do we feel like people are really listening to us. And I think you're right. So often that diffuses the situation. Like people really just wanted to be heard, I think is a huge component of it. And how often do we not hear people correctly?
Absolutely. And I'll just tell you, transferable skills are exactly what they sound like, right? They're skills that you use in your everyday job or in your home life just to improve your situation, right? They're soft skills like communication or relationship building. They're also portable because you don't leave any skill behind. They're
Mm,
stackable. You build on one skill, from another. I will say that customer service role really prepared me for every single role that I've had from there
mhm.
because I had to problem solve. I had to build relationships. I had to listen, right? I had to be empathetic. Those are all the skills, not an exhaustive list, right? But those are all the skills that I use in my current role. I just, use them with a different audience, our elected officials, our emergency management leaders, our business leaders, our nonprofit organizations. You're just listening to solve for different things or pair the services and products that your company has in order to address a need that they may have.
And so here's my $1 million question. How do I not get defensive, Pam, when people are coming at me with those, like, with those things? Because I feel like one of the challenges of listening, right, is trying to not have your own emotional response. Because I feel like so much of listening is you trying to really be in the moment with who you're listening to. But when you start getting hijacked with your own emotions, right, your own stress or your response, or especially if you're like, you start feeling defensive about something, which I guess in customer service, like I get it. If you're, look, if you're answering the phone call from a clothing company and you're not the one who dealt with the slow boat from China, and the sweatshirt didn't arrive for Christmas, but still, look, you had a bad night. We all have these experiences. I feel like that's when I have the hardest time listening, when I start having a personal reaction and I start thinking, "Ooh, it's going off the rails." How do you do that? Because you in particular, I've seen you do this. So like I know you're so great at this. How do we get better at that?
I think what you have to do is try to remove your emotion from the situation, remain silent, listen. And body language has a lot to do with that. That's part of listening, right? And being in tune with the individual or individuals that you're engaging with. What I found success is when I'm quiet, I do not interrupt. I give the persons that I'm talking to visual cues to let them know that I'm in it with you. I hear you. I'm listening to you. And when they take a pause, I'll, interject and say, thank you for expressing your concerns. This is what we can do, or I apologize for what happened. Let's schedule a meeting, or let's have coffee, or can we step over here to the side and have a more, intimate conversation about what's happening? I want to help. And people will start to kind of come down, and calm down
Mm-hmm.
because they know that they have someone that can assist them, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
has the resources or the network to address their need and who's there to make things better. And I always think about how would I want someone to treat me in that situation? And
Mm-hmm.
then I approach it from there. We're all human, right? And we
Yeah.
all have, not so good days, right? But it's all about the way that you respond to an individual that determines whether or not you can, repair that relationship or have a conversation that will move you forward. So stop, listen, engage, make sure your body language is intact and that you're in tune, and even repeat some of the things that the individual has said. I understand that your, power, was cut off in error. Let me find out what happened. We can make this right, things of that nature, letting them know that you care.
Yeah, I think that's so much of it, right? Is there's just letting people know that you're another human on the other end of the line, or face to face is so much better, right? Because there's nothing like seeing another person. Because you can, what do they say? Is it 70% of communication is body language? Is it that much? I mean, it's so much, right? Is that in person, which is so hard now with COVID, et cetera. It's so difficult. But text message is the worst, right? Because you can't even hear intonation. You can't hear the crack in the voice. You can't hear the baby crying in the background, because you can get so much information just from what the noise, right, that you hear on the phone. So when we're texting or we're doing chat bots in business, this is really hard. An emoji only gets you so far. So I think that's right. One of our biggest challenges in communicating in business is like text gives you very little information to, especially with tone, to really know how to communicate with people. So I think that it's made being a great communicator even that much more difficult, right? Because sometimes I'll get a text from a client and I think they are really angry. And then I get on the phone and they're cool. It's just the way they text, I'm like, I would have popped a smiley face on the end of that, just to make sure that like everything was cool. So I think that you're right, that when we can get face to face, great. When we can get on the phone, even better. Like getting as close contact as we can with people enhances our success rate. But I love your idea of saying back to people what we're hearing, and really trying to fully listen. It is hard work to be a good listener. It's exhausting.
It takes a lot of focus.
Yeah.
It takes really understanding that the conversation is about that individual, that business, that leader, really not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about how I compare, whether it's again, resources, services, resolutions, whatever it is, to this particular situation to resolve it, make it better, and keep that relationship hopefully intact. That's always the goal, to have that relationship enhanced or intact. And sometimes it takes a runway of time in order to do that. But I really believe that there's no one and done on relationship building. I think it's just that current, just that evolution of continuing to talk, seeing people at events and things of that nature. But I'll tell you, I kind of printed off a little sheet here of transferable skills, and I'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about those. I've talked about the active listening piece that's
Mm-hmm.
been really essential, and just making sure that I connect with people, because you can connect with someone. Just being flexible and being confident again about what you're doing and what you're saying. Public speaking is another transferable skills.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to customers on the phone. You move into, presenting at a meeting, and then you're at some of these larger functions where you have to go on stage and introduce yourself or introduce a panel, and you've got some really big things coming up. So that's definitely a transferable skill. And I'll tell you one that permeates everything you do, from your family to your work life, is teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to work effectively in a team. I always tell my daughters, everyone has a role. So you may do sweeping one night, you may be, cleaning something another night, but everyone has a role. And those things you can take from your personal life to your professional, from your professional to your personal. And it's just building on, those traits and those, skills that you pull from there to make yourself better.
Yes. I love that. I love being on a team. I can't imagine not doing things on teams. Like I'm just a team person. And I think that it's more fun that way. you know, your celebrations are doubled and your sorrows are cut in half, and that's the beauty of a great team, right?
Absolutely.
And I love public speaking, as you know. Not all, I mean, I'm nervous when I'm public speaking, but I just love the power of it to transform women, in particular, their career. I mean, look, there's just, I think it's such, you're right, a transferable skill, whether you leave a job, you start a business, wherever you go. I think those are huge, huge. What is your advice for women who are nervous about public speaking, who are maybe not raising their hand or not leaning into that? Because I know sometimes people say for me, like they don't want advice from me because they feel like, oh, like you've given a TEDx talk, Stephanie, and you teach public speaking, so we don't want to hear from you. But you have in your role, especially, you have really, this is a huge part of your role, but it wasn't always. How did you grow into that? And what are the ways in which you've seen that really transform your career?
So how did I grow into it? I think for me, working at my current employer, we have groups called employee resource groups.
Okay.
And these are opportunities for employees to engage with other employees, as well as senior leadership, to grow their careers, to gain exposure, to increase their visibility, right? Whether it's just for personal use or their current role, or to get them prepared for their future roles, right? For promotions. That's where I started. And I started to raise my hand, even though I had no idea what I was doing, what was involved. I knew I wanted to do other things in my career. So I just started to raise my hand. And I asked not only my colleagues that were there, I asked leaders for advice. One of the things that I really encourage people who are afraid to speak publicly is start small.
Yeah.
Start small. Start in the middle of your kitchen or start in the bathroom in front of the mirror and just start reading and record yourself reading, right? And then listen to that. And then record yourself on video reading again. Look at your facial expressions, your tone, the quality of your voice, the speed at which you speak. Those are things that you can kind of do like individually, right? But I also encourage people to raise their hand in meetings at work,
Mhm.
at church. There's always someone that they need to read the announcements, right? Or present an award or talk about maybe Heart Health Month. Raise your hand. And I always say you can have what you're going to say typed out, even if you have to read it. So those are some of the things that you can do. A lot of the local nonprofit are looking for individuals that want to serve on boards or committees. Those are maybe low visible opportunities where you can learn in a safe environment with other, individuals who are trying to learn just like you, right? And so there are a number of different ways to do it, but I always say start. No
Hmm.
matter where you are, what you're doing, whatever your skills level is, start and figure out where you're going to start. And then ask for feedback from people that you trust and continue to do it. Continue to do it. Make notes, critique yourself, but give yourself some grace in the process of learning this new skill. And I get very nervous sometimes, depending on if there's going to be 500, 600 people. I'm like, oh my, what am
Yeah.
I going to say? But you have to do it. And I just look at where I started from 2 years ago, where my voice was kind of shaky when I introduced someone, to now I'm feeling more confident. I know I've got to go up those 4 steps. I land at that microphone, I look out and I say, good morning. I've got my prepared remarks and go for it. Sometimes you stumble over a word, but you did it. And so just start small and keep going and build and stack those skills and opportunities and learn from each of them.
Hmm. Yeah, when you're saying that, I mean, talking about stacking, I just think about every time you give a talk, a presentation, you're just building like bricks on a wall that you can stand on top of. I mean, in your intro, I think I said yourselves or you, or I don't even know what I said, but like, look, I'm a human being. I'm not re-recording that. We're rolling, people. Like, I'm not
Right.
Oprah, any of it. Even if I was Oprah, she probably wouldn't redo it either. Like, it's okay. I'm a person. I
Right.
have a mouth. I'm talking. Like, I don't know. It's life. That sense of just moving forward, momentum, getting it going, just starting is the hardest part, I think, for most people. And you're right. And I think we're really scared of feedback. We're really scared of not being good enough. And it turns out like nobody has this figured out. And the best thing I know about public speaking is like very few people have innate talent. Like you don't have to be Adele. You don't have to be the world's best singer. Like you actually can build on public speaking as something you can get better at, which is great news for everybody because it's not that crowded, it turns out, because most people would rather die than do it. So why don't you give it a shot and you will have opportunities. And of course you mispronounce stuff and get nervous and my ankles rolled when I'm walking up steps. But like remember Jennifer Lawrence fell up the steps to get an Oscar and everyone loved her more for it. So I'm always thinking like if I fall down the stage, hopefully people like me more. I mean, hopefully they find it charming. I don't know, but it is what it is. And I think that it's part of that growth process. And when you talk about stacking skills, like what do you mean? What's an example? What does that mean?
Yeah, so an example of stacking a skill would be, let's say if I'm going to speak at a event, I'm
Uh-huh.
going to use my public speaking skills,
Uh-huh.
right? Because I have to interface with people, whether it's in small groups or when I get on stage to introduce myself or introduce someone or the topic, right? I'm using relationship management and relationship building skills because I'm mixing and mingling, right? I'm networking. I have to
Uh-huh.
still, interact with individuals, right? And so while I'm doing that, I'm using my active listening skills to find out more about the individuals, right? And those connection points that we have. It's just like if you and I were in a room, I want Stephanie to talk because I really want to know what connection points do we have. We both, like you said, love glasses. We love colorful clothes. We both have amazing networks that we've taken the time to really cultivate and build, things like that. So I'm stacking all those skills in this environment in order to be successful at this particular time. So the active listening, the relationship building, the public speaking, we've all been in different situations, like you said, where we're nervous. But now in this situation, because we've gotten better at it, right? We're still learning, growing. We're able to stack those skills to walk confidently, which is another skill set, transferable, right? Confidence into this situation to accomplish whatever that goal is, meeting new people, presenting, etc. So it's just continuing to move those skills along. They're portable depending on the environment. Stack them. You're going to use more than one skill a lot of times, right? In these environments. And they're transferring from one scenario to the other, from home to work to church to uh, meetings, etc. You're using them in all different scenarios. A lot of times we don't even realize it.
Yeah. I love that. And okay, so I have a question for you. Yeah, if we get into a networking event together, we're fun. Like somebody should find us. We really take them all over a room. But and it's funny now because we have the luxury of being here for a while, so we know people. But ooh, in the beginning, when you're going into a new environment, or you like open the door to an event, and you're like, I don't know anybody here. It's like big gulp. Here we go. Like now that I've done this long enough, I'm like, this is going to be fun. Like I can't wait to find the unicorn in the room because that's how I have trained my brain. Instead of thinking, I hate this, I don't know anyone, this is, I'm just thinking there's a unicorn. I'm gonna go find them. Like I'm gonna go find some cool person. This room has got to be full of fascinating, interesting people. And where is this person? And I think of it as a challenge and an opportunity. And those people are there. They're adults. They didn't have to be there. So presumably they want to be there and have something interesting to say. So like, let's go chat. And that's how I think about it now. Once you know so many people, it's actually really hard to meet new people because you're too busy chatting and getting caught up with people. So how do you, now that you're kind of 2 years into Wilmington or so, is it about 2 years? Have you been here more than two
It'll be
years?
2 years very soon, in a couple
Okay.
of weeks.
So you're like kind of at that point where you're probably walking into every room and knowing a lot of people. How do you push past that? How do you deal with that mixing and mingling and networking so that you're still, chatting with people but continuing to meet new people? Because I do think that's a really challenging, beautiful skill set of like entering conversations, exiting conversations, and keeping it moving when you got, 30 minutes at a little cocktail reception, you got to get home or somewhere else. I mean, I kind of struggle with that sometimes. Like, I want to be a good listener to your point, but if I'm silent, there's some people, they'll just trap you in the corner. And you know what I mean? You can't move. And I'm like, I don't know exactly how to do this. And I feel like I still need some help on that. And I feel like I've watched you and I think you're really great at that setting. So how do you do it, Pam?
So in terms of just making sure that you engage with as
Work
many
the room.
people.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I think it depends on the setting
yeah.
and what you have going on in terms of um, the goal
Yeah.
that you have during that particular evening. I think for me, what I always look for, I'll kind of answer the question in reverse. I always look for the individual that's standing in the corner not talking to someone,
Mm-hmm.
because usually that's probably a newer person, someone that may be uncomfortable, may not have a huge network or any network at all, right? I look for the eye contact to see if maybe they're like, yes, I want to talk,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I work the room that way, making sure that I can, kind of keep an eye out for the people that I need to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to kind of mix and mingle and still interact and, network, and make sure that I'm, listening to what, someone else has going on in their career or their families, or getting caught up, but also making sure that I can actively engage and transition from one conversation to another, if there's something that I have to accomplish. So I just look for transition points, like, whether it's, refilling my drink, my water, or, making sure that I see somebody, excuse me, I see, Stephanie, I need to get with her about, my house that my beach house that I'm going to purchase. Or, what, part of me, let's reconvene this conversation on the, other side at dinner. Let me get with so and so. So you'll know as you interact with people what those opportunities are to transition from conversations. And it's a skill,
It
and
is
you
a
see,
skill. It's
yeah.
like but it's a hard one to like figure out. And I mean, I feel like I'm far from socially awkward, but sometimes I struggle where I'm like, oh, we got a talker. And I'm like, I'm gonna fill up my drink. And they're like, I'll come with you. And you're like, great, come on. Let's just hang out all night. And I think you're right. I love the idea though of working that from the outside in. And I try to do that too. When you see someone in the corner, either they're new to town, they're waiting for their spouse to get there or whatever, but they're often always very happy to talk to someone, right? Because they're
Right.
looking for that connection point. And I do also really try to think about who's on the guest list and is there someone I specifically need to get in touch with, haven't seen in a while, need to make a connection. Because sometimes those are the only times I'm seeing certain people because our lives don't overlap. We're not in maybe the same events as I'm normally in real estate or something like that. So it's kind of helpful. But it's one of the blessings and the curses of knowing a lot of people in your town is you have to be a little bit more strategic than when you're new and you're just kind of meeting everyone. But communication and that relationship building, I think, is just it's so key and it's so important. And it's such a gift once you have those networks, but you have to work to keep, cultivating and growing those and being a good friend, which you are such a good friend. And I'm so happy to have you in my life. As we think about wrapping up, and I think about your advice here about these portable skills that which you can stack and you can transfer. If you were going to give advice to your younger self, Pam early on who was coming out of school, is there anything that you would advise her? Not that you would do differently, because I think that's such a hard question, but advice that you would give to her or to women who are just younger on, earlier on in their career, um, in the context of today, because we're in a different world. When I was getting my degree and starting into my career and professional, there's so much pressure, there's so many things we have to juggle, social media, LinkedIn, there are just a lot of things coming at us. Or what would be your kind of words of wisdom?
I think if I was going to give myself some advice, my younger self some advice, it would be go for it. There's room for everyone at the table, in the room, um, at the conference. You have something special to offer, and the world needs to see it, hear it, and you need to share it. So I would say go for it, and do it afraid, do it scared, because that's the only way that you can get out of your comfort zone to be who you are, figure out who you are. It may be something that you want to do, and you try it, and you say, you know what, that's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I've done it. I'm good. However, there may be something like public speaking that you think you want to do and you try it and it's your thing. But if you never stick your, your toe out there, or you never try it and put yourself out there, then you'll never know what could be.
Mm,
So go for it. And the last part of what I would say is find other people that will cheer you on,
mm,
whether it's family, friends, or whomever. Find your board of directors. I say that all the time. And your board of directors is comprised of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be all women, but it's comprised of people who want to see you excel, who believe in you, who will cheer for you, who'll say, maybe that's, not the right thing to do, who will center you, right?
mhm.
And give you good, honest, real, caring feedback so that you can continue to evolve and be the best version of yourself, whether it's from a personal standpoint or a professional standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I just love the idea of going for it. I mean, it's like if you're hearing this and you're like holding yourself back on something, and you know that you are, and if you're listening, the thing I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, go for it. It's the number one regret when people are dying is the stuff they didn't do. I don't know what the thing is going to be for you, but I am really, really not into that stuff. I am into go on the trip, do the thing, wear the bright dress. Yeah, because nobody watching my grandmother pass away, she wasn't thinking like, oh, I wish I'd written more emails. I wish I'd spent more time at work. She wished she had gone on more trips, spent more time with family, tried more things, wish she had taken more career risks because it didn't quite turn out how she had envisioned and dreamed. And she experienced a lot of ageism at the end of her career and felt sort of discarded. And it sort of that's what she experienced. But because she didn't take risks, she chose the easy path. I think that there were some things she would have done differently. So yeah, I think you're right. You got to go for it, but nobody knows inside of your heart what it is but you. And so yeah, you get out there and you go try it. And we're so blessed in 2023. Is that the year we're in? I think so. To have so many opportunities, So I hope that the women who listen to this, the people in the Inspiration Lab, have seen a lot of women do that and take those risks. And it's such a joy to be your friend, to hear this great wisdom. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Pam.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's a joy to be your friend as well.
All right. Until our next episode, have a good one.